Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 7th of July, 2020. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. The chat is on. It's been on for a few minutes. I want to thank you for coming. Yes, I do have my Second Amendment cup this morning. I figured it was time to get back to that. So there it is. And of course, it has the ubiquitous, luxurious, exquisite caramel cream coffee. Mm. Probably won't last for a while here. It's going to get cold. I had to turn the air conditioning up a little bit because these lights are so hot it's like 100 degrees outside. So, at any rate, why did I label this or title this video, this live stream, The Prospect of Tragedy? Well, I think it fits. There are a lot of people out there who want to give you a lot of hope and hopium, and it's constant optimism, and that's a good thing personally, and in a lot of ways, but also it can lead to real tragedy because you're not prepared for events as they can occur in reality. I have some very good friends who I'm sure are very upset with the direction I have taken in my criticism of the Trump administration, Trump himself, and some other things. But I think given the circumstances and what we're looking at, there really is no other option. Like I've said many times, when people say, well, why don't you attack the Democrats the way you do Trump? Well, it's because we already know where the Democrats are. Trump fooled us. Or at least he wasn't serious. It was one of the two. So, at any rate, we have some very, very difficult and dangerous things in our immediate future. And today we're going to talk about some of those. And a lot of it's coming from within inside our own institutions, where they have been infiltrated and taken over. And you all know that I've talked about this many times. As a form of lament, I see that Stefan Molyneux has been taken off of YouTube. I consider to be one of the most important voices in the world today, at least in the Western world. His philosophical approach to things, while isn't entirely mine, of course, I do it from more of a spiritual standpoint, which is philosophical in a sense as well. We needed Stefan's input, and he was an invaluable, and is still an invaluable resource. But those voices are all being shut down, ladies and gentlemen, and Trump's doing nothing about it. He signs executive orders, he makes big promises, but he does nothing about it. As a matter of fact, as every day passes, they get more and more in bed together. Trump and his team and the United States government and the tech companies for surveillance. Despite what they tell us, that's really where it's going. So I just wanted to say that I hope that Stefan can get his channel back, or I imagine he's gone to another platform at this point in time. I don't know what that is. But for those of you that enjoyed his content, he's worth trying to find. I'm sure he's out there somewhere. I just don't know at the present time. The entire COVID thing is continuing on. This is part of the tragedy. This is the transformation of humans into transhumanist automatons. The masks are designed to be not the first step. We've already gone through some steps. The dehumanization of fetuses, of children, of other people opposing our political viewpoints, other races, whatever. The demonization and the dehumanization has already happened to some degree, but now it's been put into overdrive. And make no mistake about it, this forcing of wearing masks is that initial, the first real visible, I'll put it that way, move into the transhumanist movement and the destruction and elimination, indeed the genocide and extinction of humanity. It is no less than that. And again, I have friends that just can't stand to hear these things. And yet, if I don't say them, I'm remiss in not doing it. The occult is very strong, and it's working overtime right now, and a lot of people don't understand it. I'm going to say in general terms that there has been a defense of certain things lately as far as those are concerned. And all I will say is that those people are in over their head. They're out of their league who think that those things aren't serious. I'm not going to say much more of it than that. I think I've said enough already in the last few days. But there are real problems with Luciferian doctrine, and it's infiltrated so many of our institutions and even our minds and hearts that we don't recognize it anymore. We don't recognize it at all. And some of you whom I've had contact with on Twitter, explaining some of that will know what I'm talking about. But I'm really not going to spend that time here because people just don't understand it. A lot of people can't even. They just have no understanding. Aleister Crowley wrote 777 back many years ago, last century, beginning of last century. And he had great influence because of it, and that information was spread across all the governments of the world and the Western world. So people don't realize how infiltrated this nasty stuff is, and we have this two-party system. We have two major power entities that are fighting for or competing for the rule of the world, and it's like I've said many times, it's the wicked destroying the wicked is where it's going to go. And we just have to stop thinking that we can pick a side of men by men that is going to win, because it's not. These forces have been here for a long time, and we don't have the ability to change it. So we have to be the change we want to see in the world ourselves. And hopefully, the Christian notion of the rapture, I don't subscribe to the traditional, evangelical viewpoint of that. I can't, because I've seen it. I understand it in a different way, partially because of my study of the languages, but it's really something else, and it's not going to be the type of thing where well, first of all, you're just not going to get saved by a guy. Okay, that just ain't going to happen. It's going to have to be a different transformation. They're doing their transhuman transformation to turn us into these computer chips walking around obeying, and eventually designed for the trash heap. And what we have to do is we have to resist that at this point. That's really where we are. And so we can't give in to this. As I said on the Shepard Ambella show yesterday, I was sitting in a Walmart Walmart parking lot, and people now wear these masks, walking, driving, running, everything. It's amazing the brainwashing and the subjugation that the people are willing to put themselves under. This does not bode well. Along that same line, and I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but I came to a realization. It was just this morning when I came up with the Prospect of Tragedy title. People really can't stand. They're really not psychologically, physically, or spiritually, or emotionally capable of handling tragedy like I thought they were. One of my big failings has been that I have stood up to a lot of tragedy, a lot of horrible things. And I'm not going to go through what those are, but believe me, they've been a lot of horrible things, everywhere from personal tragedy to obviously seeing the country fall apart, to medical tragedy, to conflict around the world, crime, illness, death of loved ones. I mean, it's just been it all. And I thought a lot of people were capable of handling the truth, or at least if they don't consider it the truth, the possibility as I say here, the possibility, the prospect of tragedy, and that you can't turn your back on it. But people don't want to hear it. I have very good friends that I thought were capable of handling this information, and they're not. And they fell apart to the point where a few of them committed suicide. I don't know why I was steeled for this. S-T-E-L, not S-T-A-L. Steeled, hardened. I mean, don't think that it's easy for me. My heart aches, cries out. But for some reason, keep going, and I keep talking. Keep putting out the warning signals and calling from the watchtower. No, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. Used to be at one point when I was very young. My parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. I've talked about all that history before. So I'm disappointed that people can't accept and react to this and act accordingly. And yet I have to remember that maybe they're not capable of it. And that's a hard pill for me to swallow. You'd think that they would be at least concerned about their children, but only superficially are they so. If it interferes with their worldview, if it interferes with their plans of pension and retirement and the good life, they don't go here. I don't see us coming out of this because of that one problem alone. Oh, I imagine there'll be some major catastrophe or event that'll finally shake them out of their complacency, and then they'll act. But as it always happens, it's usually too late, and then the price that you have to pay is so much more than if you had acted earlier on. So I just needed to say that this morning. Sorry about my emotional aspect of that, but that wasn't planned. I thought I could say it without it. So I got some information yesterday. We all know about the black militias, the BLM, the Antifa, Black Panthers, along with the help of probably ISIS trained surrogates and really bad folks. Remember, I said they'd use the protesters and then get in there and then start taking it over and bringing in the really bad folks. Well, we're starting to see that happen from the information that I've seen myself watching the videos, but also from information from people that have very good sources that are kind enough to give it to me. I guess because they know that I'll disseminate it. I ask them first if it's okay, and there are some restrictions, but we're going to talk about a little of that today. The principle is very similar to what's happened here. Is very similar to what the Russians were going to do. Actually, the Soviets. I like to delineate that. The Soviets, when we've been in Germany, the United States has been in Germany, really occupying Germany, but we were there, of course, to ostensibly stop the Soviets if they tried to invade. And there's a place called the Fulda Gap in Germany, and the Fulda Gap was where they anticipated that the Russians, the Soviets, I should say, would make their move to invade Germany. The Soviet army wasn't going to be the first one through the gap. It was going to be the Bulgarians. Now, unfortunately, the American soldiers, the upper echelons, the generals, and maybe the brigade commanders, and maybe even, well, probably no lower than that, knew that that it would be the Bulgarians, but they weren't told that because they wanted them to be able to. Well, it was partially propaganda to make us fear the Soviets, unreasonably so. But the other reason is because you have these soldiers that are going to come through the Fulda Gap first, and they were honestly the worst soldiers in the Soviet satellite system. Ill-equipped, ill-trained. The Soviets looked on them as just fodder. And as they would come through the Fulda Gap, they would basically get wiped out, but force the Americans to believe that that's the best that the Soviets had, and then come with the really elite forces. And wear down. It would be kind of like a war of attrition at first. Take out a few of the American positions, find out, use that attack to find out the disposition of the American forces, and what's called order of battle, so that they could then adjust their plans to make the invasion. Well, that's essentially what's happened here with these protests. They've put out these lemmings first, and now we're seeing the upgraded, seriously trained and committed forces that are being brought against us. And don't take any of this lightly. At first I thought there was theater going on there, literally because of all the movies that are made in Georgia. I thought that perhaps this was a movie set and that they were, playing around with it a little bit and using it as a little bit of propaganda. Now, of course, we know that that's not the case. These guys are serious, and they're not kidding. Whether or not they'll go to the violent level quickly or not at all is hard to say. It depends upon how when they do their evaluation of their actions, and if those above them decide that it's worth it to go ahead and go to the next level. I don't think that decision has been made yet, but they're definitely looking at it because we have done nothing. We've had Governor Kemp in Georgia finally call up the National Guard, but that's to guard government facilities. And of course, the response most everywhere else has been near nothing to nothing, and that's encouraged the opposition to move ahead. And that's why I say it looks like if things continue down this road, that there might still be an election in November. I'm not certain of that, but things are going to be so chaotic and so crazy and so hot that it's going to be a very bad time. If not before then, if we make it through the election, certainly afterwards. But I see that that's possibly not going to last that long. I think we're going down the road, and I don't think there's any turning back at this point. Now, going from there, I received a text yesterday, a DM, no, the day before, I suppose it was, and I really appreciate people sending me information. I don't always look at everything. I mean, I must get hundreds of DMs a day. That's no kidding. And I just can't get through it all. And I have to vet almost everything. Sometimes I don't because I either already know about it or there's no way to actually get the definitive information corroborated, but I think it's important enough to bring it out. Well, this was one, and I'm going to read this. I don't mean to play a Nancy Morgan Hart here. I'm not trying to take over her job. Matter of fact, maybe I just ought to forward this to her, and then she can put together a report. But I think I'm going to go ahead and cover it now because it addresses a lot of the things that I've said. And this is going to take a few minutes to read, but I think it's very important that you do so, that you hear it. This is from the New English Review. It's at newenglishReview.org. And it was put out Friday, the 3rd of July, and it's called True Americans in Charlottesville and the FBI by David J. Baldovan, I guess is how you say his name. This was an incredible article. Need some coffee. Hold on a minute. Usually you drink water when your whistle gets dry, but I need the warmth of this too. And it's already getting cold. Let me jump right into it. With the communist-inspired insurrection and Antifa in the news, see, there are other people that understand what's going on, it might be appropriate to offer a glimpse into my former employer. Wait till you hear this. It's everything I've been saying. Item number 35 from the Congressional Record dated January 10th, 1963, on the current communist goals is discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. It is an excerpt from The Naked Communist by former FBI agent W. Cleon Skousen, who I've already told you that I knew personally. I knew Cleon Skousen from his Institute for Constitutional Studies. I took his class. I knew him at BYU. He was one of my professors. He was a personal acquaintance. And then I also am aware of his brother, Joel Skousen, who's written, and I've told you about it, Strategic Relocation. He's got his own blog and his own YouTube channel and some other things where he gives out information. In 2017, I was on an email thread with other retired FBI agents, and the following is a quote in its entirety from one retired agent concerning the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. Like I said, this is going to be long, but I think it's very important. The first task is to have a discussion about moral hierarchy. Southern white supremacy and the German Nazi strain of fascism were political philosophies that have been exposed and rejected intellectually, culturally, and politically. Some of the main principles of those movements were racial superiority, slavery, anti-Semitism, and genocide. Among all the ideologies developed by man, they are among the very worst. The Unite the Right rally carried the Confederate and Nazi flags, marched with torches, chanting blood and soil because that is part of the history of white supremacy and Nazi movement. The movement of white supremacists and Nazis is morally inferior. Hold on. Unite the Right can assemble and hold rallies, and the government cannot prevent their speech. However, they must be met with nonviolent opposition by the rest of society. The true Americans in Charlottesville were the anti-fascist protesters, one of whom was murdered. The UTR must be opposed because the alternative is unacceptable in our society. Kessler being routed at his press conference was a victory of the morally superior side. I got to hasten to tell you again, hold on. He's giving you some information from an FBI agent, and he's going to say some things here in a couple of minutes. Okay? Just hold on. Moral equivalence is the argument of the apologist. If someone's first response to the events in Charlottesville is to say, what about the other side, that says as much about the person's critical thinking ability as it does about who has their sympathy. Now we go back to the author of the article. There we have it. Here we obviously must have a critically thinking FBI agent stating that Antifa, a relic of German communism first sent to the U.S. in the 1930s by the Soviet Comintern, is a group of true Americans. So you get that he's quoted an FBI agent for a reason. And now he's going to expose what this FBI agent and so many others in the FBI, the Department of Justice, and in all of our institutions is like. So that's why I wanted to read this. So he just read you an FBI agent who's saying that the UTR was this horrible thing and that the anti-fascists, the Antifa, were the true Americans. Now his response. There we have it. Here we obviously must have a critically thinking FBI agent stating that Antifa, a relic of German communism, first sent to the U.S. in the 1930s by the Soviet Comintern, is a group of true Americans. Is it just me, or might this agent also maintain a certain bias against one region of our country? In her book, The Red Thread, Diana West documents former FBI Director James Comey's one-time affinity for communism. And he and those others have brought in people into the FBI that think the same way they do. That's what I've been saying. The rank and file is not good. Has he ever rejected it? Comey rejecting communism? Might his actions over the last several years be an indicator? Of course that he didn't. With the above in mind, one might argue communism did not dismantle the FBI. This is important. I'm going to read this again. With the above in mind, one might argue communism did not dismantle the FBI, but has successfully become part of it, ingrained itself in it. There is an oft-repeated phrase by certain pundits that the problem is not the FBI rank and file. Hannity's famous for saying this. The problem is not the FBI rank and file, and that the corruption is at the top. From the above example and from the myriad of numerous examples from more of my former colleagues, I can with confidence anecdotally confirm that the FBI as an organization is indeed heavily ideologically corrupted and has successfully been subverted. They are, of course, oblivious to it. Life tends to be much clearer in retrospect. This, in my opinion, is attributable to the successful takeover of the left by our educational system. What have I been saying, where these agents come from? Number 17 on Skousen's above referenced list. The recent photograph of FBI agents kneeling before a mob in Washington, D.C. here is further evidence. I am convinced that the above-noted agents and others actually don't have a clue as to what it is that would cause them to come to the conclusions they do or why they think like they do. The agents of influence have done a masterful job. An indoctrinated person does not know that they are indoctrinated. Taking another cue from the above, retired agents' lengthy quote, religious superiority, supremacism, slavery, anti-Semitism, and genocide have all been Islamic hallmarks. Remember, I've been saying, they don't even... The Islamic problems have been put aside. They just want to attack Americans because the communism knows that that's how they can get at us. These Marxists, these Maoists know that. This ideology has not been rejected. Islamic hallmarks have not been rejected. The FBI willingly chooses to meet with it and partner with it. The FBI has given awards to officials of and affiliates with the Muslim Brotherhood, a self-proclaimed enemy of Western civilization. Is this just goodwill trying to make a difference? No. These are alliances, and this is the type of thing we've been fighting with. I've been talking about problems with the FBI for 3 decades, both on a personal and a professional level. The FBI, therefore, legitimizes it, the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic extremism, Antifa, etc. It gives legitimacy to an ideology whose representative, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, met and apparently did or tried to conspire with Adolf Hitler in November 1941 against their quote-unquote natural enemies, which I read above to be among the very worst ideologies developed by man. The FBI has agents assigned to reach out, community outreach, to the Islamic movement, which is a supremacist movement in and of itself, that they say they supposedly oppose supremacist movements. No, not the ones that meet their agenda. And its U.S. vanguard, the Muslim Brotherhood. Do they have agents assigned to reach out to the white supremacist community? Just my point I just made. The FBI, they infiltrate them and then use them to stir up trouble. That's what this black thing in Stone Mountain was all about, the black militia. They're trying to get the white supremacists to move, and you can bet that they have FBI agents in the white supremacist movements that are trying to kick them into action. Hopefully they know that they can't do that. The FBI actually took a knee previous to the embarrassment mentioned above. It has taken a knee to the Muslim Brotherhood, to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization doing business on as the Council of American Islamic Relations, CAIR. They, in my opinion, remain on their knees today in this regard. I have more anecdotal evidence gathered from both retired and active FBI agents that suggests to me that this is the case. Now you wonder why I say the prospect of tragedy? We're being led down this road by the very people that are supposed to be protecting us in our rights and against invasion. And they're assisting all of the things that are attacking us, including Trump. Trump, I mean, is involved in it as well. It's really obvious, at least to me. There has been an oft-repeated meme out there that the FBI ceased collaborating with CAIR circa 2009. That claim is easily refutable. But now wait 1 minute, say Mr. Baldovan. Surely we must be diverse, inclusive, tolerant, right? Another leftist posed question, because they always want to be accepted. They want you to accept them, but it's never the other way around. We, the FBI, are so inclusive and tolerant that we tolerate the intolerable. Thus, we have been successfully subverted by not one, but two leftist totalitarian ideologies. One, of course, piggybacked on the other. I think I might be safe to suggest that this is exactly the moral equivalence, moral relativism the above agent is arguing against. But it is part of the cultural Marxist playbook that we have succumbed to as a nation. Not just the FBI. It's even in the White House. Look at Kushner. Look at McMaster when he was there. Look at Mattis. It is a moral equivalence, some argue, that some of our elected politicians apparently accepted starting in 1933. I will quote blogger Andrew Mellon, quote, "Most lenses have become so distorted with cultural Marxism that individuals, when faced with truth and logic, are unable to process events objectively or with prudence. Not even for their own survival or for the survival of their kids or their posterity or their loved ones." This all points to further evidence of organizational malfeasance, a malfeasance caused by cultural Marxism. It is the ideological glue within the agency that binds it together with the swamp. And you think that Durham's going to do something? I saw a Q post. I remember I was there at the beginning of Q, and one of the very first posts was that Hillary is going to be arrested, and that they're already moving to go get her, and all this. And that was in 2017, November 2017. The new people in the Q movement are aware of these anomalies and these errors and these lies that early on. This whole thing was an intelligence community psychological operation against the conservative movement. In closing, I would like to say that it is not my intent to disparage or demean any individual FBI agent. I think the American public deserves yet more insight into what I believe is a deeply ideologically compromised FBI. David Baldovan is a retired FBI agent whose oath to the Founders' Constitution is not retired, author of The Silence of the FBI Lambs and co-author of False Prophets Disarmed at the Vanderbilt University presentation. There you have it. If our institutions that are supposed to protect our God-given rights and to ensure them, if they have been compromised to this extent, and it's not just the FBI, ladies and gentlemen, I saw it happening in the Department of Defense. We can see it in the White House today. We could see it the very day in the campaign that President Trump stood up and presented the LGBTQ flag at his campaign rally. I don't have anything against homosexuals as long as they leave me the hell alone, or transgenders. But they're pushing it on us and our children, even by the President of the United States. And then all you got to do is see what's happening now with this whole thing with the Wuhan virus. Trump is allied with Gates, Fauci, Birx. And yet I still see Dan Bongino and Lou Dobbs, although Lou tries to point out some things. But these people that want to support Trump at all costs never call him out for that. And the reason is why? Boy, we got to win the election, because if Biden gets in there, how bad will it be? It's already this bad. Can you imagine what would happen if Dan Bongino came out and said the things I'm saying now? Would it make an impact? Oh, he'd lose followers overnight. He'd lose some of his financial stability, no doubt about it. But that's what I mean. These people they don't know real tragedy, not really. And it's going to land in their lap and it's going to destroy them, and they'll wonder what the hell happened. Well, I'll tell you what the hell happened. They closed their eyes to the reality of the situation because they thought that supporting their party was more important than principle. And I can understand the tactical and strategic value of that. But there comes a time at which you can't do it any longer. And I have been calling them out. How many times have I been on here saying, gentlemen, you've got to start calling this for what it is? They can't handle the little difficulties in their lives every day are more than they can deal with. Real tragedy is something that's going to totally destroy them. Like I said, I've seen my own friends who can't respond because they just can't give up their comfort zone. To be accepted. As a matter of fact, I had one, he says, what did he call me? He says, I forget the word he called me right now. Like I say, I don't write this down. But the principle is I don't submit. I don't go along. Wow. And I love these people. They are not aware of what awful situation they are about to undertake. Thought a food supply was a week's supply of food. Got upset that he had to spend money to put a week's supply of food in his house. And if he watches this, he'll know who I'm talking about. And I don't disparage him, and I love him. I love him like a brother. As a matter of fact, he's been closer to me than a brother. But he's assisting this tyranny to progress, and he's doing it because he's going to get his pension, and he's going to get his health insurance, and his plans for the rest of his life are going to be okay. In the meantime, I don't know why, but Governor Kemp of Georgia finally did call up the National Guard, as we've talked about, 1,000 troops. Their job is going to be to protect mostly government and historical places. That's well and good. I'd like to know what the FBI is doing to counter what's going on. Well, if you're like me, after I saw what was going on in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and some of the other things around the country, it's pretty obvious that the FBI is assisting in those things. They pretend to infiltrate, but really what they're doing is training. So I have a friend that was saying that they're concerned about Iranian trained and PLA trained and ISIS trained and Chi-Com trained people in these organizations. But the fact of the matter is, the FBI, as this FBI agent just explained, is in bed with all those leftist ideologies anyway. So they're pushing this. No, I don't have any trust for the FBI. I haven't for a long time. Senator Chuck Grassley, Headlines with a Voice, Nancy Morgan Hart put this out yesterday, and I just wanted to mention it, but I want you to go listen to her presentation on Grassley. Sad, no Durham report till after the election. What have we been saying? We've had all these people saying, "Oh, it's going to happen. All these people are going to jail. It's happening now. It's happening now." And there are a few of us. I mean, I gave it some possibilities, but there are a few of us on this side that have said they're never going to allow that. Well, I'm not saying they're never going to allow it, but I did say that they're going to keep putting it off. And here they are again. Now it's going to be election time before Durham gets any information out, or actually after the election. Aren't you feeling like you've been betrayed yet? And I know most of my followers aren't like the Trump cultists. There are a few on here that think that I hate Trump. No, I hate what he does. Although I am beginning to understand his occultic contacts at this point. And I was blind to them too. I didn't want to see them. I wanted to believe that he was coming out. Oh, he was coming out all right, but he's just one side of the same coin. The wicked will destroy the wicked, and we better figure this out really quick. And I'll bring this up here. Trump has some very close ties to Soros. We already knew about Kushner having some close ties to Soros. But I want to read this. This was sent to me again on Twitter. I'm not going to give credit to the person that sent it. I don't want them to be harassed. But you'll know who you are. For reasons unexplained to the public, the majority of Trump's mezzanine loan was quietly forgiven by the loan's original lenders. No media outlet covering the deal has put together the pieces and told the public that George Soros let Donald Trump off the hook for what has been valued between $82 and $312 million in debt. Why would Soros give what amounts to a massive debt relief to Trump during a financially successful period in Trump's life? Are these men friends, enemies, or business partners? Ladies and gentlemen, we've been betrayed majestically, masterfully, and it's very, very dangerous. Saw a meme on Twitter yesterday. It's very good. It's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. There is no justification for taking away individuals' freedom in the guise of public safety, public health, etc. But we're all bowing down to it. Many of us are. I won't show you the rest of this. I've got so many other things here. I'll just end on this. And then we'll get into the black Marxist marches and things that are coming up as well. And then I'll go to chat for a few minutes. I really like this. I sent it to a friend of mine who lives out in the rural areas, who's a farmer. Because the Antifa, the BLM, the Panthers, and all those people say they're going to the rural areas next, and they're going to do their thing there. They're going to, cause fires, cause all their difficulties. And this was, I think this was actually, let me think of who did this. Yeah, it was David Knight, actually, that put this up. I don't know where he got it, but it's David Knight from InfoWars. He says, so rioters say country folk are next. You do realize, rioters, that country folk will sit 30 feet up in a tree all day just to kill something. Oh, I just thought that was too good. And this from the CDC, because of course we know all this testing is baloney. What they're doing is maneuvering us into more tyranny. We know that, but I just want to read this. This is from cdc.gov. Okay, if you test positive, a positive test result shows you might have antibodies from an infection with a virus that causes COVID-19. However, and I've been saying this for a long time, however, there is a chance a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with a virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as the ones that cause the common cold. This testing is ridiculous. It's a way to make money for the pharmaceutical companies and the politicians and of course people like Bill Gates. And it's a way to bring about the subjugation of the American people. We have to resist it all, and it's not going to be an easy task, but we have to do it. Okay. They're on the move. The insurrection is escalating. As I've said before, we're not just being attacked by criminals from below, from extremists and from insurrectionists from the side, but the government from the top with this COVID thing and the clampdown of the tyranny. We're on the verge of war with China. Why? Well, because anytime the government's about ready to be exposed for its wrongdoing, be it monetary wrongdoing like the financial reset that we're going to have going through at this point, or if in fact there is going to be any type of expose of the pedophilia contacts and all of those things at the highest levels of the elite. Anytime that those people are going to be exposed, they're going to make sure that you get focused on another enemy. And I'm not saying China isn't, but there are forces at work that are taking us down that road. But China's not going to have to invade us. We're going to do it to ourselves. And I just read how the FBI is helping that to occur. And I've talked about in the past about how the government has set up a lot of these terrorist things. I mean, look at 9/11, right? Well, I want to read now what's happening. I got this information, and I did ask if I could disseminate it, and he said yes. So I'm going to do it. And this is from a person in very good position in D.C. who's watching, has intelligence reports coming to him, and this is nothing classified, okay? This is all source, but that's very good information, and you need to know about it. Talking about the protesters. I'm not concerned about these guys. The operators I'm more concerned about are trained Brotherhood and Iranian operatives, and perhaps some PLA and Spetsnaz trained surrogates, Chicom trained. The real auxiliaries have not shown up yet. This was last week. If you were a communist revolutionary or anarchist, why wouldn't you press the attack? Nobody's responding. The closest thing we've seen that of any substance is Governor Kemp, and even that's not really all that effective. That's more of a defensive position, not taking these aggressive insurrectionists out. Let me start to read this again. If you were a communist revolutionary or anarchist, why wouldn't you press the attack? FBI and DOJ are on your side. Talking about the insurrectionists. The FBI and what did I just read? The FBI and the DOJ are on your side. The military and CIA are on your side. The insurrectionist side. POTUS is lost. He's in over his head. Or he's complicit. Senate Republicans are letting it happen. Now is their chance. Structuring an insurgency to look like a tense political season is a proven tactic. It's been used by the CIA all over the world to destabilize governments. Look at Ukraine. My intel nets are starting to light up. What we are seeing is complete freedom of maneuver throughout the engagement for the cadres. He's talking about the Black Militia, Antifa, the BLM, the Black Panthers, the ISIS-trained fighters, the Chicoms in their forward operating cells. They're moving, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to listen to this. And I want you to pass it on to your governments, your governors and your state police. They probably won't listen. Let me start reading that again. My intel nets are starting to light up. What we are seeing is complete freedom of maneuver throughout the engagement for the cadres. The Antifa elements are traveling in 4 to 6 vehicle convoys using rolling resets at truck stops. What does that mean? That means they're resetting up. In other words, they might exchange out vehicles or personnel or whatever. It makes it harder to track. It's like the getaway car, and then you have a getaway car parked somewhere else. You drive the getaway car away from the robbery, right? And then you park it or blow it up or whatever, and you jump in another car that looks totally different. That's what this is. Just as an example. There's more to it than that, but that's an example. The Antifa elements are traveling in 4 to 6 vehicle convoys using rolling resets at truck stops. Often these reset points include a Ryder rental truck and a small passenger bus. Truckers should be on the lookout for these. State police and sheriffs need to start tracking these activities and running identities and tags. Many vehicles are rentals and some are using dealer-issue tags for cover. The cells are using Walmart prepaid cards en masse for food and fuel. Why? Because you don't know who it is. You can buy those, put money on them, and there's no identification as to who it is. The banks can't keep track, and neither do the credit card companies. This is well organized, and Soros is behind this, as well as our intel community and the Chicoms. The cells are using Walmart prepaid cards en masse for food and fuel, clear indications of significant command and control and central coordination at national and regional levels. The first sighting of auxiliary type units was seen this past weekend, in Washington State, Oregon, and Atlanta. Snap checkpoints and civilian intimidation tactics are what they're using for now. Targets continue to be statues, government buildings, police, to show that the government is not in control. My belief is that we may be days or weeks from significant violence, targeted killing, bombing, and assassination. If they elect not to take the steps to violence, it will be due to their own effects-based desired, and the U.S. government and state and local governments are presently powerless to prevent it. It's because they don't want to prevent it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the takedown of America. This is not just the prospect of tragedy. America's going down. Oh, it's like I said earlier on when I started my YouTube channel. You know, the label on the bottle is the same, but the contents have been changed. So we might be called the United States of America, but we'll resemble nothing of the republic for which it's supposed to stand. And we really don't now. But it's going down further. And it's going to end in a lot of bloodshed. This race war is being stoked. It's not being stopped. It's being purposely pushed. And as I just read, they're on the move. The only thing that's keeping them from acting in violence, total violence right now, is the controllers are waiting to see how we're reacting at each stage of the game. And how are we reacting? Are we reacting in the correct manner? Well, don't you take action. Don't you let them suck you in like that black militia leader who's actually probably an FBI undercover COINTELPRO, trying to stir up the whites to act, because that's what that was really about. It was to try to get the whites to act, to take offensive, defensive action that they think that is necessary. Don't act too soon. Acting too soon is more dangerous in this regard than holding back. But I'm not saying do not defend yourselves. Always defend yourselves. It's like I was saying about the ambushes on the roads. Well, it's funny that thing that happened in Seattle on I-5 was a black guy that was driving the car, so they said it was a white luxury car. They didn't want to discuss the driver. It didn't fit the narrative. But it shows you how fearful these people can get, how much fear they can cause, and how much fear the people can be in that see those things. And then as we saw in Provo and some other places, then they get you stopped, you're in a kill zone, and then they shoot you. Or they pull you out of the car and beat you to death. You have a right to use deadly force when it's being used against you, or the prospect of it. And any DA, any cop that doesn't protect you in the right to defend yourself is the enemy. Just like what they were doing with, and I guess in some places still are, arresting people on the beach, at playgrounds, in barbecues. Newsom having his what did he call it? It's not a task force, strike force. These governments are evil. The cops will go arrest a mom on a playground, but they won't go after these dudes. And there were obvious crimes committed in Stone Mountain. Obvious. You walk up to a car holding a weapon and you tell somebody you want money for reparations, that's robbery. It's using force or fear. And the cops did nothing. It's also terroristic threats. It's also inciting to violence. And there are also federal crimes about that as well. So, they're not here to help you, ladies and gentlemen. The prospect of tragedy isn't really a prospect. It's a guaranteed situation at this point. So, prepare accordingly. We've been going for 55 minutes. Let me hit the chat. Again, I see Edison James saying pedal to the metal. The only reaction to an ambush is attack the ambush. If that means you have to gun your car to get out of there, that's fine. If it means you have to shoot somebody, I'm sorry. You know, people are going to say, oh, Roy, you're inciting to violence yourself. I'm talking self-defense. And I know, like that DA in St. Louis, or the Chicago, Illinois mayor, or the DA in Atlanta. Self-defense, if it's done by those who are being assaulted, they want to make it illegal. That's where we are. What did I just read about the FBI? They're going for these leftist ideologies to put you at a disadvantage, and there's nobody up there to help you. All the law and order tweets and statements at the rallies aren't being, that rhetoric is not being seen in action on the ground. Quite the opposite. I'll tell you what, an executive order should be written today against these agents in the FBI and other federal law enforcement agencies that if they don't do their job, they'll get fired. But you know what? The civil service system protects them. But there are other ways around that. I did it myself when I was a military officer. Had civilians working for me. There's a way around it. But Trump doesn't have the will to do it. And people say, well, he can't because nobody's there to help him. He's all alone. He's up there. I'm the lone warrior, he even says. Hogwash, bullshit. Liar, liar, pants on fire. No, you don't have the will. You're there so that you can watch and make sure that this country goes down. Oh, he came out supposedly, somebody saying he came out against Kushner the other day and was real upset about Kushner. Well, gee, he's still in the White House. Personnel is policy. We have to be on our own. We have to start getting things ready on our own. Sorry, I got off course there because Edelson put his thing there. But this is serious. Oh, and I did say the other day also that I was going to show you some, I did it already with one, but in your preparations, food, water, medicine, ammunition, bug out place, however you're dealing with this, getting neighbors together and coming up with a defense plan, whatever. Communications are important. And this is just an example here. This is a Midland X-Talker two-way. These are really good. These are 38 mile. They don't go that far. That's straight line distance with perfect atmospheric conditions, no obstructions and all that. But certainly within a couple of miles, these are very effective. Okay. Even in a built-up area, a few blocks they'll work. But like out in the woods, several miles. I wanted to show you that, and this is one outside the box so you can see it. I showed you a smaller set the other day. Let me get that out. This is a Midland as well. I showed you this the other day, and actually I got to probably put this over so I can see what you're seeing. So this one here you can see is a little bigger. This is a little stronger. This one here is a very small one, but it's probably good to, actually we tested it, and it's good for, even in a neighborhood, it's good for about a half a mile minimum. Okay, this will go a couple miles. It's a little stronger, as you can tell, a little bigger, a little more power. And these aren't expensive. Well, I wouldn't say it's inexpensive, but these go for around $80, or you can buy them in a little better kit for about $100. The smaller ones like this, which have a range of about 20 miles, they say it's really not that far, but these are right around maybe $40 for two. And then the next option, which you should consider moving up to, because the FRS frequencies, they're different. I don't want to get into that. You can find this on the internet. Go look up different types of handheld communications. They'll talk about family radio service, mobile general radio service, ham radios, and then CBs. What I just showed you are FRS radios. I stay away from MRDS and from ham because in those situations you usually need a license. I'm not going to go into that here. I just mentioned it. You do with it what you want. But I did want to show you some CB radios. This one here is a Cobra. This is the one I keep with me all the time. I keep it on scan. That way, if there's a blockage in the road down a ways, and if somebody's reporting on it, I'll know about it before I get there, and I can change my route if I need to. or any number of other things. Talk to somebody. These are good for several miles. As you can tell, these are not base stations. These are handhelds, so they're not as strong as the base stations, but they're still pretty good, and they're obviously easy to use. This is a Midland, and this doesn't have a scanning capability, but I use it as a backup. Or if I need to hand it to somebody for some reason to go on a little trip, they can take this with them, and I can keep in contact with them. Line of sight, again, for the most part. If there's a big hill or a mountain between you and them, it's not going to work. But you make arrangements to deal with that. And if you can afford and take the time to get a license on a ham radio so that you can use it without getting in trouble, do that. I'm not saying you can't have a ham radio, but don't get caught using it, because you can bet that if you're a conservative out there, constitutionalist, and you're using it in a frequency and a channel that you're not licensed to use, they'll come after you because of who you are. They probably won't do it to the communist, leftist, Marxists, but they will to you. So I just wanted to show you that to give you some more information on it. Yeah, Cobra, C-O-B-R-A, Cobra. And they have a whole line of handhelds, not just CBs. They're a lot like Midland or Motorola. But at any rate, just for your information. Gas mask, good point. Jane Swinford, if you can get a decent gas mask, do that. The masks that they're telling you to wear for the COVID are ineffective. They try to say, well, it keeps sputum from getting in the air and all that. No, you need something substantial. You need a CBR mask, chemical, biological, radiological, to really work. Those N95s, for instance, have a valve where when you breathe out, it sends it might prevent you from spitting close by, but it's still sending germs out into the air. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it doesn't really protect you from the germs coming back in. This is all hogwash. Gator Bill, yeah, you say I used to get on ham without a license. I went by, yeah, and it fooled them a lot. Yeah, but you know what? I don't see anything wrong. Somebody else told me this. I don't know if it's true. I haven't looked at the FCC regulations, but my understanding is that if you use a ham in defense of life and limb, that it's okay to do it without a license. So that might be the way to just have one available is probably not a bad idea. But I wouldn't use it unless you're in a dire situation. Ham can use FRS. Okay, good. That's nice to know. Truth always. My wife is a respiratory therapist. These masks are crap. Of course, yeah, we are, and I appreciate you telling us that, and we all know it. Gary Hines, have you heard of the lights going out in October, Roy? We've been hearing about this for a long time. Of course, having the grid go down would be one of the ways that they could. Remember, China wants us to fight amongst ourselves. I've talked about that before, the bar fight and the police waiting to go in, etc. They want us to fight amongst ourselves. It softens us up. We can't have a unified response that way. But it's also good for the New World Order, which, of course, is tied to China. So would they take the grid down? Yeah, I think so. I think that's part of the plan. When it's going to happen, I don't know. October would certainly be a good time. Oh, thanks, Jesse. Yes, he points out BP Earthwatch. He says, you can listen on ham without a license, not talk unless it is an emergency. Thank you, Jesse. So there you are, and he would know. So Jesse from Real BP Earthwatch, he says, you can have a ham radio and you can listen to it without a license, but then only talk in an emergency. Very good. Thank you. That's what I had heard, something like that. So thank you for clarifying it, Jesse. Can we trust General Flynn? Jay Nitzil. Wow. General Flynn has been mistreated. Thank goodness for Sidney Powell and Judicial Watch for exposing all this that's happened. General Flynn was a Democrat. He survived the Obama purges until he pointed out the situation with us supporting Al Qaeda. And that's when he fell from good graces. General Flynn is an intelligence officer. He's a spook. I don't trust spooks. Not saying he's a bad man. I mean, he's gone through a hell of a lot. At least on the surface, it appears that way. But some things have happened in the last little while that I'm wondering about. I've been assured that he is innocent of any intentional deception in certain regards. But, I keep a scorecard, and I don't like it when I see the scorecard leaning one side more than the other, the bad side more than the other. I think I would go further and just say, just don't depend on him, because you can't really depend on anybody but those close at hand. That's all I'll say about it. I'm not sure what that's about. Free Roger Stone, yes. Yes. Nothing yet. And I guess the judge is saying that he's going to have to report. Stone asked for a reprieve until October. The judge said, no, you got to report in mid-July, I guess is the way it is. And nothing from Trump yet. Trump says he has nothing to worry about. Trump says Stone has nothing to worry about. Trump says a lot of things that he doesn't do. He says a lot of things for public consumption. Everything's a delaying tactic. Everything's kicking the can down the road. Everything's about suppressing your Second Amendment and First Amendment and your Fourth Amendment, despite the rhetoric. Kenneth H., you're also assured Trump is a good guy as well? I'm not sure what you're saying, Kenneth. No, I don't think he's a good guy. I've had a total change in direction on Trump. I don't trust him at all. I consider him to be a compromised, anti-liberty plant. I don't trust him at all. Well, just me, Roger Stone might not be, you're saying Roger Stone is a piece of garbage. Well, he might not have your moral standards, but he didn't do anything wrong to put him in jail. This has all been a bad deal for him, just like a lot of other Trump supporters. By the way, do I like Nancy Pelosi? I'll just say it publicly again here. The Democrats are evil. They're occultic, Luciferian worshipers. We've seen that they get down on their knees to the most hideous ideologies, just like the FBI agent read there about the FBI agents bowing down. They're all evil, ladies and gentlemen. But we already know they're evil, and we're not going to change their minds. You're not going to do it. You don't cast your pearls before those swine. It's a useless endeavor. So I've been harping on Trump and the Republicans, hoping that they would repent and return back to the true principles of the Republic. But they're not. And that's prima facie evidence that there's a problem. Oh, you're going to vote for Biden? Of course not. But I'm not so sure I'm going to vote for Trump. I might just stand out. I might just not be involved at all because it's never done us any good. They use our vote to say we have a mandate. Bullshit. You always talk about the mandate part that you want, politicians, never about the ones that really matter. Edelson James, you calling out Nancy from Nancy Morgan Hart? I haven't seen her on here right yet. Okay, well, we've been going for an hour. You know I don't like to go much more than an hour these days. Get all of your preparations done. It's very important. These people are on the move. They might start hitting government buildings, more statues, police, assassination attempts, and things like that. But eventually they're going to turn against you. They will be coming into your neighborhood. As they gain strength and gain in numbers, they will start attacking in other places. And you need to be prepared all the time. All right? I read you the intel information. They're on the move. The only thing holding them back right now is a go from the lead controllers. It's the only thing holding them back. And if they think they can get away with it, and it's looking like they will, because nobody's doing anything of any major value, as I read, again, the FBI is on their side, right? Ghislaine Maxwell. What is she really up to? We now are fairly certain, almost 100%, that she's a double agent in the intelligence community. Has been working with the intelligence. People are saying, well, she's turned. Now she's going to reveal all these bad folks in the U.S. government. Man, you guys just love to smoke that hopium, don't you? Who's in control of the world? You really think that Ghislaine is going to unmask, reveal all the wicked, evil connections? Do you think they'd let her? Maybe on the other side, but remember, this is a two-headed monster on one body. This is one coin with a tail and a face. This is, and I saw a little bit of this, the double-headed eagle of order out of chaos. The wicked will destroy the wicked. We need to stay out of the way and pray to God harder than we ever have. Stand up for principle, not become part of a cult of personality and worship it. Boy, I'll bet you my coffee's cold now. Oh, yeah, because I got the air conditioner on strong. Time to go heat it. Thanks, everybody, for coming. That was a lot of information to toss at you today, but I felt it was absolutely necessary that you hear it from people on the inside. So, I have, as I've explained to you, I have some really big things coming up. Actually, we're in the middle of it now. This is the time period where our family gets together and we spend a lot of time together. So I don't know if, I'll be able to do another one of these formal live streams at least for a week or two, at least a week. But I'll try to do some shorter updates if the necessity presents itself, okay? Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Keep your situational awareness on extremely high volume. And continue to prep, pray, and stay out of the way. All right? Thanks for coming. God bless you and yours. Be safe. Out here.